A frozen kitten was found unconscious on a construction site. This is how they brought him to the hospital. One day a man came into the veterinary clinic. In his hands was a tiny kitten, which lay motionless. The baby hardly breathed and did not react to those around him. As it turned out, the tiny creature was found on a construction site, where it managed to freeze to death after spending several hours in the open cold air. Doctors immediately rushed to the aid of the small patient, who was unconscious. He had no reflexes and his body temperature continued to plummet. "He is still alive, but in critical condition," said the nurse, giving the baby in. Others at this time carried out manipulations aimed at warming the tiny, helplessly lying body. The main task was to immediately raise the temperature. Blankets, heating pads, injections and all sorts of medical procedures were used, but nothing helped. After thinking a little, a doctor named Jeff suggested putting the kitten under running warm water. Amazingly, the small, completely frozen kitten began to come to his senses. He raised his head slightly, slowly moved his paws and began to make a faint squeak. The baby, who was named Stanley, reacted to what was happening, and the doctors could not believe their eyes. Of course, he was still in serious condition, but compared to what he had at the very beginning, one could talk about the first modest results. After bathing, they immediately started blow-drying him, and it became clear that his body temperature was rising. And again drips, injections and medications followed. After some time, his body temperature returned to normal, and the baby began to rub his muzzle on the table. This was Stanley's way of making it clear that he wanted to eat. The overjoyed doctor brought him food and couldn't believe his eyes. The kitten began to eat. "This can't be true," the doctor exclaimed. "This is simply amazing. A few hours ago he was dying, but now he wants to eat. This is a good sign." Playful and cheerful. Meanwhile, a young man appeared in the hospital lobby. He came to inquire about little Stanley's health. This was the same person who found the baby on a construction site. Dr. Jeff came out to see him and told him that the baby was recovering, eating a little and gaining strength, despite the fact that a few hours ago he was in critical condition. The man only smiled happily, hearing that Stanley was saved. Well, the baby soon recovered, and nothing reminded him of that terrible day when he first ended up in the hospital. Of course, he was still thin, but he already had energy. Stanley turned out to be a playful and cheerful kitten, and when he was petted, he turned on the motor and purred throughout the room. You can probably guess what happened next. The man who found our little hero came to the clinic to take the little one into his home. He already had cats living with him, but he didn't want to part with Stanley. Handing the baby into the hands of the new owner, Dr. Jeff joked that out of his 9 lives, this kitten had definitely spent 7 to survive such an adventure. But it's great that everything ended so well, right? Click like and get only the best ones.